Well, hi there, everybody. I'm Carly Shortino Poulter. I'm the director of the ARC Advocacy Network here at the ARC of Indiana. And I'm also a mom. I have a 23-year-old son with autism and a 17-year-old son who does not have autism. So I'm also a fellow parent. And I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us tonight. I'd like to welcome you to our first Ask the ARC session for 2024. Tonight, we're going to be talking about resetting. It's a new year, so it's a new you. A lot of people this time of year tend to make New Year's resolutions. There are things that they want to change or new things that they want to do. And frankly, a new year is a good time to just kind of stop and review your life, to reassess where you're at and what you want, and to start thinking about what changes you might want to make. And so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight is new year, new you. And so um, this one is going to be a little bit different because ideally I would love to make this webinar interactive. It's a little bit harder when it's a webinar, but I think we can do it. So I have learned how to enable the chat in a webinar. I know I'm not exactly the most tech savvy person out there, so I've just figured this out. But what I would love is as we're going along tonight, I want you guys to chime in with your thoughts, with your opinions, especially as we go along with what we're doing tonight. So I am going to start by sharing my screen. And like I said, this is about new year, new you, a time to review, reassess, and reset. So as you're thinking about your life or the life of your loved one with a disability, what's been going well in the last year? What hasn't gone as well as you would have liked? What modifications do you want to make? What new things do you want to try? And is there anything you want to move on from? Because the reality is, sometimes I think we tend to stay with something that doesn't make us happy or isn't giving us the results that we want because we think we're supposed to stay with it. It's okay to say, you know what, this isn't working. So we're going to stop this and we're going to try something new. So that's what I want you to start thinking about is, reassessing your life, your loved one's life, whatever the case may be. What's going well? What hasn't gone as well as you'd like? What modifications do you want to make? What new things do you want to try? And is there anything you want to move on from? And we're going to use that, or we're going to do that by using the Life Course framework. And, we talk about Life Course a lot. And I've talked to a lot of families who tell me, Carly, Life Course is great if your kid's high functioning. But my son has a lot of disabilities and he's not able to speak and he can't get a job. Life course just doesn't work for him. Okay, well, I hear you as you're saying that, because I do get a lot of that feedback. And I think a big part of that may stem from the examples we tend to use with Life Course. Because when we do examples with Life Course, we tend to talk about things like, you know, getting a job and living independently and all sorts of things like that. And those are valid things to think about and to plan for. And I think a lot of the reasons that we tend to use those as our examples is in part to be aspirational, to help people think about what the possibilities are, to broaden their expectations, to have high expectations. But sometimes I think in the process of that, we may have accidentally made people feel excluded from this. And so I'm going to respectfully say, I think life course is something that can be used for anybody. And not just people with disabilities. I mean, literally anybody can use life course. You can use it for your loved one with a disability, but you can use it in your own life. And so we're going to use life course today because those life course principles are universal. Life course isn't necessarily about getting a job or living independently. Life course is about figuring out what is your vision of a good life? What will make life enjoyable to you? what are the things you need to make that happen? And then, creating a plan, finding those resources to make that vision of a good life actually come true. And so those life course principles help people define what they want and just as importantly, what they don't want in life, because sometimes that's the easier question to answer, to help determine an individual's strengths, to help them determine what resources they already have available, because sometimes it's easy to feel like there's nothing out there. And I talk to a lot of people who will sometimes tell me, I'm making all these phone calls and nobody's willing to help. Well, sometimes we've got to broaden things a little bit, because sometimes when I hear that, it's not that people haven't been willing to help, it's that people haven't been able to give the person what they want. And those are two different things. So let's figure out what types of resources are out there to help us achieve that goal of a good life. And part of that is also identifying that person's vision of a good life, because sometimes that's difficult. It's can be difficult to pin down and to really kind of dig in a little bit. And Life Course has some really great tools to help you with that. And then also determine the skills and the resources that you need to achieve that good life. And so I've heard what people have told me, and I've heard people say, that they don't feel Life Course works for them. So I'm going to take that into consideration tonight. We're not going to talk about getting a job. We're not going to talk about living independently. We're not going to talk about somebody who's really high functioning and going to college and doing all these things. We're going to talk about Jill. And let me be clear, Jill is totally made up. And frankly, I just named her Jill because I have a friend named Jill and I miss her right now. So we're going to talk about Jill. And Jill is a 25-year-old woman with a moderate intellectual disability. She got a certificate of completion from high school. She stayed until she was 22 and got that certificate of completion. Jill doesn't work, but she does have the family supports waiver. She loves animals. She loves children. She loves crafting and she loves decorating cakes. But like a lot of people her age who have left school, Jill is also lonely, because she's gone from being in school where she was in all sorts of clubs and she was part of the pep squad and she did best buddies and, um, she took home ec classes and she did all sorts of things in school. And man, especially when she was 22, that final year of school, she was ruling the school because she was in charge. The school's over. And one of the things that we see commonly is that people start seeing, people become lonely. They see their classmates move on to that next stage of life, whether it's college, whether it's relationships, marriage, eventually even children, and they're not doing those things. And they feel stuck and become depressed. And then sometimes they start spiraling down. And that is really common. And so the example we're going to use today is about making friends. Because you know what? We all need friends. We all want friends, not only for us, but we especially want friends for our loved ones with disabilities. And that idea of making friends is something that's important and appropriate for a kid who is in grade school, but it's absolutely appropriate for somebody who's 25 or 45 or 65. It's a universal need. There's a psychologist named Dr. Karen Harvey, and she did a training for providers and for BEAD staff several months ago, and you can likely find it online. I think we've even linked it to it on the ARC's website. But it was about how to prevent exploitation and abuse. And she said something that really hit me and really stuck with me. She said, people with disabilities aren't at risk of exploitation for their disability. They're at risk of exploitation because they're lonely. And you know what? She was right. Because a lot of the time when somebody is taken advantage of, it's because they are lonely and they want friends and they think that this will make them friends. So, it's a universal need. And we want to expand that network of support that everybody has. And you know what? You don't have to be able to speak verbally to have friends. You don't have to have really high abilities to have friends. Everyone can have friends. So that's actually what we're going to wind up working on tonight. And so I want you guys to join me in this. And so we're going to start by, well, let me see. We're going to start with with Life Course. So this is the main Life Course website. It's lifecoursetools.com, and they have all sorts of resources and tools and videos to help you figure out how to use Life Course and help you figure out how do you plan for the life you want? How do you figure out what you want in life? And then how do you figure out what's around to help you with that? So in part, I want to help you navigate the site a little bit. So the Life Course Library is probably one of the biggest areas you'll use. And so this is the Life Course framework part, and so I totally lied. That is not the Life Course framework. That's just the landing page. Um, and so this is the Life Course framework page where it really just starts talking about what Life Course is, because Life Course is about having conversations. It is about a different way of thinking. It's about encouraging high expectations. It's especially about having life experiences. And that's one of those things that I think gets overlooked. And I think a lot of people don't have experiences because people aren't sure how to make those happen. And it's also about trying to figure out how do you integrate multiple types of support. It's not about the tools. And the people who develop Life Course will be the first to tell you it is not about the tools, and it is not a program. It's an idea of making sure that people can figure out what they want in life and figure out how to achieve it. And so, you can poke around here and learn all sorts of things about Life Course. There's some really great information and really great videos here. Um, and you can explore the different life domains. Those are the different categories of life. So things like daily life and employment, things like healthy living, supported decision making. They've got things here on transitioning from foster care, respite, and then abuse awareness and prevention. And then they've also got COVID-19 specific resources available, and also exploring different life stages. So, for example, if your loved one is in grade school, guess what? They've got materials tailored specifically to that. If your loved one is transitioning to adulthood, they've got lots of resources for that. And there are a lot of moving pieces when it comes to that transitioning to adulthood bit. So, having some of those resources is really helpful. Adulthood and aging, because the reality is people with disabilities are now living long enough to have aging issues. And so that is kind of a new world, a new frontier for us to explore and to figure out. So if your loved one is getting older, there are resources for them too. But we're going to start with the foundational tools. And all of these are also available in Spanish and in several other languages, to be honest with you. But they have, family perspectives tools. Um, let's open that up a little bit, to help you figure out, what is the family's perspective on certain things. Because I'll tell you right now, what you want for your child in their life, what you envision as their good life, and what your loved one envisions as a good life may not be the same thing. So sometimes, each group, doing up their own can be a really, really helpful because it helps you see different perspectives. And then finally, we're going to go here to the person-centered tools. And They, again, tons of different tools here, but really I wanted to start by helping you, you know, navigate the website a little bit so that you knew what types of resources were out there. We have trajectories for exploring, trajectories for planning. We've got integrated support stars. We've got the life domain vision tool, which I think is really, really helpful. We've got the reciprocal roles tool because we often think about all the things we do for our loved ones with disabilities. We often don't stop to think about what they do for us because they actually do a lot for us too. Mapping relationships, and then planning and tracking success. And so we are going to start today with um, our planning trajectory. And so this is where I definitely want you guys to chime in the chat. Okay, like I said, today we are going to focus on making friends. So when we're talking about making friends, and by the way, this is the planning trajectory. I'll be honest, this is my favorite tool because it's what is your vision of a good life? What past experiences do you have that are helping you get to your good life? What do you still need moving forward to get to your good life? And then just as importantly, and sometimes easier to answer, what do you not want in life? What past experiences have you had that have been taking you there? And what do you have to be careful of so that you don't go to what you don't want in life? So I want you guys to chime in on the chat and let's start filling this out together. So when it comes to making friends, what's important in friendship? Well, to me, one of the really important things, one of the things I want both of my kids to look for in a friend is respect. You know, I want somebody who will treat them with respect, who will treat them with dignity. And I will tell you right now, guys, I am probably going to have typos here along the way, so please don't bust me on that one. Um, so we've got some other ones. Safety. Yeah, we want people who aren't going to take advantage of them and who aren't going to, try to convince them to jump off a bridge unless they have a bungee cord attached to them and is with a professional. And then maybe, that's a different story. We want trust. We want acceptance. We want loyalty. How about fun? You know, um, Well, we know that Jill likes animals and she likes kids. She likes crafting and decorating cakes. So, um, oh, somebody Noah wrote on here that you want friends who aren't afraid to call you out when you're doing something wrong, but I will also say do it in a respectful way. So, real friends are honest. Oops, that looks like a funeral. Told you I'd have typos tonight. Um, um, Age appropriate. Okay, sure, sure. Jill likes animals and all that, so maybe she's also kind of an outdoorsy person. So likes animals, likes outdoors, you know? Likes me for me. Now I have that song in my head, but I love that idea. What else? Good listener. All right. You know, and what are some of the things we want our friends to be able to do? Whoops, that didn't work. Maybe it's, we want a friend to go to the movies with. We want a friend who is going to um, you know, who's adventurous, and who loves to go on adventures with me. You know, think about what do you want? Doing crafts, absolutely. Now, what are some of the things that we don't want in a friend? I don't want somebody who talks down to me.
I don't want somebody who's going to be rude. I don't want somebody who makes jokes. Um, Not real jokes. Real jokes are funny, but we all know those people who really just insult people and then insist, "Oh, I was just joking." Nah, you were just being a jerk. Um, let's see. I'm seeing some other things in here. Talk with your family and friends who can help you. Um, so someone that manipulates you or uses your kindness, or some other things. How about somebody who's always a downer? You know, there are some people who really tend to dwell in the negative, and believe it or not, I gotta admit, that is something that's hard for me, and I know people are always like, "Oh, Carly, you're always so positive, you're always so upbeat." No, I force myself to be that way. I force myself to be Pollyanna because that is how I maintain my sanity, and that is how, I improve my life because that is not my natural state. And when I start going on the negative, man, I could spiral down quick, and it's easy to do that. So I don't want to be around somebody else who's negative because I'm going to latch on to that. Let's see, we've had some more coming in here. Take advantage. Um, oh, I love this. Um, Beth said she doesn't want somebody who's going to try to take care of her or do things for her. Respect her enough to let her do it herself. She can tell you when she needs help. Do it with me, not do it for me. Um, Someone who doesn't get who you are. Um, doesn't fulfill their promises, or oops, doesn't fulfill promises or doesn't follow through. Someone who's unreliable. If they say they're gonna do something or be somewhere, gotta trust that they're gonna do that. Yells at you. That's right. That's right. Doesn't make time for you. Um, and doesn't want money. That's right. All right. So we've got a really good list here already. So now let's think about patronizing. Absolutely, Beth. So let's think about Jill and you know, what we're pretending about Jill. Um, what past life experiences do you think Jill has that are going to help her with friends? Well, you know what? She has a bubbly personality and she's really friendly and she likes people, you know? Um, but at the same time, you know, it's hard for her to get out and do things. So, what are some of the things that she needs going forward? Well, she needs more experiences because the reality is she's been kind of sheltered. Her family was always trying to protect her from everything. And a lot of us do that. We want to protect our loved ones. And in reality, what we're doing is we're isolating them and we're sheltering them and we're preventing them from having real world experiences. And so as a result, they may not develop that discernment, being able to tell when somebody is real or fake, because we've always tried to shelter them from it. So she needs more experiences and she needs to be able to get around. Oops. So that she's not always relying on mom and dad to take her everywhere. because she's 25 years old, she should be able to go get Jimmy John's whenever she wants to. Um, so so think about those types of things. If this is what we're wanting, in a friend, and like I said, then we're also gonna add things like go to the movies, um, craft stores, maybe horseback riding, uh, bike riding, you know, fun things. Um, we need to think about what else she needs to do that. Then also, let's think about what past experiences she has that have pushed her toward what she doesn't want. Um, Too trusting, you know, um, people pleaser, be afraid to say no. Because the reality is, when it comes to people with disabilities, we tend to focus a lot on compliance, especially when they're in school or when they're in therapy or things like that, we in the real world, who talks about compliance unless they have a regulatory job? You know, we don't say, "Oh yeah, our mom is really compliant. My best friend, she's really compliant." Maybe I'm a little biased, because I will be honest, I am defiant and non-compliant, and I'm good with that. I remember when my son was young, I remember saying that that he was very compliant. That was one of his strengths. And it hit me when he was in middle school. I am not a compliant person. I don't want my kid to be either. I want him to challenge authority because I don't want people taking advantage of him. And that's the thing. We when we focus on that compliance piece, when we don't respect somebody's no, when we don't let them know that they're allowed to say no, that's when we make them that's when we make them, targets for exploitation. We need to teach our loved ones to say no and that they can say no. And then we've got to respect their no, which I got to admit as a mom is sometimes hard. Especially now that my son's an adult, I have to respect his no. Um, so um Nick said, I think we need a Declaration of Independence for special needs kids and their Constitution and their Bill of Rights. I believe that all special needs kids are created equal. Amen, Nick. Um, so, what are some things that we need to keep an eye out for? Well, you know what? We need to make sure because she's been depressed, because she's been lonely, we need to make sure that she's protecting herself and valuing herself so that she's not being around somebody who's claiming to be their friend who isn't. Um, we need to think about her depression and make sure that that's being treated effectively, whether that's with medical professionals, whether that's with therapists, whether that's just having a cup of coffee with somebody and talking stuff through. Um, so, but that's a planning trajectory. Okay. This helps us figure out, what do we want? What do we not want? What are the skills we've already got? What are the resources we've already got? And then what do we still need to develop? Then what are the things we got to be careful of, that we've got to be mindful of? What past experiences do we have? Maybe Jill has been abused before. Maybe she's been bullied before. So, in fact, let's put that down. She's been bullied in the past. So, what do we need to make sure of? We need to help her see her value, and we need to help her stand up for herself. That really should be up here. You know, those are some things that we should think about. But this is a planning trajectory. This is how you fill that out. And it just helps you crystallize things a little bit better and help you think about, what it is that you're wanting. Could we have done this? Oh, let's. So here in the middle is where we talk about, what this planning trajectory is for. And so here was about making friends, but maybe it is about helping somebody, prepare to live on their own. Now, here's the thing with that, guys. Just because your loved one wants to live alone and just because you are planning for that does not mean that it's going to happen in 6 months. It doesn't even mean it's going to happen in a year, but it's about figuring out, okay, well, what if you want to do that? What do you want? What do you want when you live on your own? What skills do you have? What do you still need to develop so that you can make a plan and slowly work on that plan as time goes on? And now we are going to talk about this. So, this is something called an integrated support star. And I've got to admit, I've changed it up on you guys because this is what's called a split star. And what I like about this is about trying to figure out what resources do you have available to you to help you get what you want. In this case, what resources does Jill have available to her to help her make friends? Well, what I like about the split star is you can talk about what resources you have available now and what you still need to develop. So here in this teal colored section are personal strengths and assets. Here in the purple section are relationships. Down here in the green are eligibility specific programs. Over here in the, I'm going to call that navy blue, is community-based options. And then here in the pink is technology. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to start down here with eligibility specific options. Okay. What type of eligibility specific resources does she have available to her? Aha, I'm so glad somebody's already getting in the chat. That's right. She's got her waiver. You know what? And a waiver is a great way to work on making friends. Whether it is trying to, using a day program or using what's called, it's now called day habilitation. It changed its name during the pandemic. There are all sorts of resources to help you make friends. Maybe it's behavior management because you've got to learn some skills to be a better friend. I've got Nick on here talking about, reenacting. He's a reenactor, and I love that. My dad was a reenactor too. And you know what? Here's the thing though, that's not going to be an eligibility specific thing. That's going to be a community-based thing. I'm going to say groups because calling reenactors a club just feels wrong. So if you aren't sure what a reenactor is, reenactment is are individuals who are reenacting historical events. So a lot of times you'll see Civil War reenactors, you'll see Revolutionary War reenactors. My dad's favorite was like the early 1800s. That all happened after I was on my own. So that was something he started doing in his retirement. Um, Sean is bringing up, and this would go in in other relationships or in relationships that she has other friends. Let's see if I can. Well, okay. Sorry, it looked like it was in the wrong spot. So I wanted to do that there. Um, Dan is saying, going back to those, eligibility specific things, case manager. Actually, no, I take that back. I'm going to put those up in relationships. The case manager and how about people she knows from church and maybe, um, let's say her parents' friends. And she's in Special Olympics. So her teammates from Special Olympics. Okay. Wow, that really didn't come out right, did it? Oops. Okay. Um, ooh, we've had more. Um, best buddies. And so she's been in that in the past, but you know what? She got out of best buddies when school ended because she didn't realize that there were citizen best buddies too. So you know what? That's an eligibility specific thing because you do need to be somebody with a disability. So I'm putting it in eligibility specific. Hold on, I need to move this window. But you're right. Best buddies is fabulous for that. But you know what? Um, let's see. A lot and yes, a lot. Beth says a lot of these things can go into more than one category, and you're absolutely right. Um, you know what? Let's talk about some school-based things. So maybe one of the big things is she got her certificate of completion in high school. Um, but you know what? There are programs to help people who got their certificate of completion get their high school equivalency. Used to be called a GED, now it is called an HSE, your high school equivalency. Maybe she's interested in going back to get that. With um uh Beth also mentioned Humane Society or animal shelters. Those are all community-based resources that are out there. And you're absolutely right. Those are a great way to make friends, but volunteering at the Humane Society, volunteering to read children's books at the library, um, choosing to make cakes for the retirement home. Those are all volunteer opportunities that also help people work on job skills. So she may not have a job right now, but if she keeps doing that volunteer work, she may get to the point where she can do those sorts of things. Um, she loves decorating cakes, so maybe taking a cake decorating class through her local library or her local YMCA or her local community center, or even, the local craft store. A lot of those craft stores have classes, um, crafting clubs, because a lot of times when we think about our loved ones with disabilities and we're thinking about things to get them involved with, we're exclusively thinking about programs for people with disabilities. Well, you know what? Jill likes to decorate cakes. You don't have to have a disability to decorate cakes. And she can, you know, t- take a class or join a crafting club or something like that that's just open to the general public. And that's a great way for her to make friends and do something she loves at the same time. And it's a great way to expand that network of support. You know what else? Self Advocates of Indiana. In fact, Self Advocates of Indiana is about to start a program where they will do, and I can't remember if it's weekly or monthly, and so I'm hoping somebody on here will help tell me that. But they're going to start. Aha! Thank you, Aiden. Um, SAI is going to start monthly Zoom meetings so that people all across the state, even if they're in a small community, can get on the evening Zoom meetings so that they can make more friends and learn about self advocacy in the process. So they want to make sure that they're addressing the advocacy need and building up self advocates, but at the same time recognizing a lot of people, they want that social interaction. They want that social piece. They want friends. And so they're going to make sure that people are able to do that too. Um, Rec centers. Um, I'm putting all of these in the future. I should be putting some of these in the now. So let's say she takes a Zumba class at the YMCA. Hey, fabulous. Great way to make friends. And sometimes, certain rec centers do offer um, accessible or adaptive programs too. So you can do both. Just because you have an IDD doesn't mean you have to exclusively be in things for people with IDD. It is universal. And so I also want to talk here about technology because um, that is something that is constantly evolving, and there are always new things coming out. And it actually does open up a lot of options for us. So, Jill, being the 25-year-old woman she is really good with her phone. And yes, she is on Facebook, although she thinks that's for old people. And she likes TikTok and Instagram. And she doesn't like X because it's just weird. It's just people talking and yelling at each other. But she's also good at finding things on the computer. Um, she is a girl of her age. I am 47 years old. I am not on Facebook. I have a wonderful woman in my office named Kat, and I go to her and I say, Kat, I have a stupid question. Um, I don't know how to do this. And she is very, very kind to me and says, That's okay. You can do it this way. Beth is saying, is bringing up, we can get her involved with Quillo. Um, which is a new platform that can open up a lot of things, and especially a lot of ideas. Beth is telling me no question is stupid. I'm calling my own question stupid because sometimes it was a little too obvious. Um, you know, um, you know, but there's a lot of technology out there. And I will tell you, when my son kept asking for a smartphone when he was like in middle school, my kid did not talk on the phone like at all. Like I had to put his grandparents on speakerphone to try to get him to speak to them. And so he'd ask for a phone and I'd be like, no, because I'm thinking he's not going to use it. Except he wasn't thinking about using it as a phone. He was thinking about it to play music and play games and thinking about all the other things that a smartphone does. And when we finally got him one of the things he started doing was he started texting the guys in his group. It never occurred to me that he would do that. And so that's one of those things that, we also need to recognize is that there are generational differences here. I am somebody that I like telephones. I want to be able to talk to somebody. I am not really a texter. I do text. I text in complete sentences with punctuation. So I've had to tell some younger friends, some children of some of my friends that if I'm texting in complete sentences and punctuation, I promise you I am not mad at you. I am just a former copy editor, and it's really hard for me not to do that you know so sometimes we got to think about some of those generational things that we deal with. My younger son, he's 17, and to me, he's junior in high school. He should be going out on weekends with his friends and going and hanging out, maybe have a dinner, going to do something to have fun. That's not how his generation interacts very often. They do sometimes, but the way they interact is by computer. They play video games. They get on a server called Discord, and don't freak out over the name because as much as the name, makes you think all sorts of things, it's just a gaming platform. but they talk to each other, not just texting either. They're actually talking to each other and hanging out and trash talking each other as teenage boys do. You know, there's sometimes we also have to recognize that there's a difference between what is age appropriate and what is polite. Those two things are not necessarily the same, you know, but what are the things that we need to think about those generational differences and how Jill's generation interacts with each other. Um, and so they do that in a lot of different ways. Um, so so think about this. What are some other things that she has that can help her make friends and that she needs in the future? Well, one of the things she needs in the future is to learn how to use Uber or Lyft or public transportation. You know, that way she can get out independently. She doesn't have to rely on mom and dad to take her someplace. We want to make sure she learns how to do that safely and effectively. But she's 25 years old. It's appropriate for her to be able to go someplace. Don't get me wrong, as a fellow parent, when my son first started doing that, did it terrify me? Yes, it did. But you know what? I knew that that was something he needed to be able to do because that was what was going to open up the world to him. So, when he was working, that's how we would get to work. Can he go and get Jimmy John's when he wants? Yes, he can. Can he go to Target when he wants? Yes, he can. Does he do it very often? Not on his own. You know, he just doesn't think about it. That's okay. We can remind him. You know, so now let's also think, what personal strengths and assets does she have? Well, she's friendly. She's resourceful. She's funny. Um, she likes people, you know. What are the strengths that she still needs or the assets that she still needs? Um, maybe she needs to maybe she needs a little help recognizing sarcasm. That's one of those things. That was something I desperately had to teach my son because man, sarcasm is my love language. He needed to learn how to decipher when I was joking and when I wasn't. So that is something that we actually worked on quite a bit. We worked on how to um, read body language and especially facial expressions, so that he could figure those things out. Um, so, maybe one of the things that she needs to learn how to do is um, how to ask people questions. You know, maybe when Jill is lost in a store or can't find something, maybe she only goes to mom. Maybe she doesn't stop the person who works there to ask, "Hey, where can I find where can I find the laundry detergent?" Because she's afraid to ask that. She doesn't know how to do that. Well, that's something that we can teach her how to do. So this is a really great tool to help you stop and brainstorm a little bit. And you don't just have to do this on your own. This is something that you open up for other people and do this with other people because I may think certain things, but you guys have given me some great answers on here. Things I wouldn't have thought about, things that I may have overlooked. And so, talking about this with other people makes a big difference. So, we want to make sure that we're broadening this up, especially because we're talking about making friends. That's exactly what this would be for. And so thinking about what types of resources are available, you know. So this is a really good tool for that as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point. And again, I want to open it up to all of you, to ask any questions you have, to share any ideas you guys have, about, you know, about making friends, and how you do that practically, and how you do that, in concrete terms in real life. But then also, what are some of the things you're thinking about when it comes to resetting, to thinking about, what you want to change in your life, what new things you want to try. I've got a friend that I work with, um, who, one of his goals, he wants to go skydiving. You know, hey man, you want to go skydiving? You got my support. I might even consider going with you, although I'd be afraid of breaking my leg, but I would love the flying part. But then we've got other people here who are like, why would you jump out of a perfectly good airplane? You know what? That's his vision of a good life. It's not somebody else's. That's okay. That's what this is all about. What do you want in life? What do you want for what do you want for your loved one? And then how do we make that happen? Well, hopefully these tools gave you some ideas. Hopefully these tools helped you see some options. For those of you who have loved ones who have more substantial disabilities, who have shared that, they don't necessarily feel life course works for them, or that they feel overlooked, because their loved one's disability is more substantial, and they feel like they're, well, overlooked is probably one of the best ways to say that. Hopefully this has helped you see that this is open for everybody. Dan has raised his hand. Dan, I'm going to ask you if you can type it in the chat, because I don't know how to make it so that anybody can talk. Um, Somebody has shared that, Heather has shared that struggling with her almost adult child wanting to be friends with kids half her age or younger, which is developmentally appropriate but not socially appropriate. Not sure how to navigate that. You know what, Heather, that is fair. And we have to have those discussions with our loved ones, because unfortunately I get calls from families who have, you know, where their loved one wants a relationship. They want to be loved, and I think that's perfectly understandable, but it's something that we often tend to overlook in our society, is that people with disabilities are people and they want to have relationships too. And a lot of times they find someone who is their developmental age, but not their chronological age. And that can cause some problems. And so part of the conversations we have to have is, having those conversations about, what is socially acceptable. And that, no, you're a 25-year-old, man, you cannot date a 13-year-old girl. You cannot do that, and having some of those really hard discussions, and I completely agree with you. And I will say, as a mother of sons, boy, that's an awkward conversation to have, isn't it? It's awkward as a parent, but think about it. Our kids don't want to talk to us about any of this either. Sometimes we gotta have those conversations. Dan is saying, join a self-advocacy group. Absolutely. And I will say, very selfishly, um, I have had the privilege of working with a lot of self-advocates over the years, and knowing a lot of self-advocates, and especially a lot of the self-advocate of Indiana board members and things like that. And they have completely opened my eyes and completely changed my perspective. You know, things like, respecting that my son is an adult and needs to be making his own decisions. That's something that would not have come naturally to me. I would have still looked at him as my child and be doing things for him. But it was because of the experiences I have knowing and working with self advocates that
they've helped me see some of those things. That would have been a failing or a shortcoming of mine as a parent, but something that I'm grateful that they have shown me. So we've got some other things coming into the chat. My 20-year-old likes to be around 8-year-olds. We took him to We Rock the Spectrum that allowed all ages. He had a ball and didn't do anything inappropriate, but I know he can't do this forever. You know what? And I think we've got to maybe figure out a time and a place where that's appropriate. So let's take Jill, for example. The example that we were using. Jill loves kids. You know, volunteering at the library in the children's section to read children's books to kids or to run the sing along section, where she's getting to be around kids. She loves kids. She, and is playing with them. That could be appropriate, you know. Um, maybe, running helping out in the children's rooms, the daycare rooms, the Sunday school rooms at church. Absolutely appropriate. Watching kids for a of preschoolers group could be absolutely appropriate. In this case, assisting somebody else who's running a play group for kids could be absolutely appropriate. And we just, we have those discussions about, what's his role as an adult, but still getting to play with people who like the same thing he does. So you're right. There's a line we got to walk on that. But we got to think about ways to do some of those things. Dan said that self-advocates can help their self-advocate friends become because of their varied experiences. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, self-advocates teach each other so much and really do help empower one another. So if you have a self-advocates chapter in your area, but absolutely help your loved one get involved. If they don't have a self-advocates group in their community, by golly, start talking to people. See if you can start up a chapter of your own, and you can always talk with Becky Shields, who is the administrator for Self Advocates of Indiana, or Noah Upchurch, who's the president of Self Advocates of Indiana, about what would it take to start a self advocates group, and maybe you start by talking to your teammates through Special Olympics, and you start bringing that together. Maybe part of what you do is you get involved with the Healthy Athletes program through Special Olympics. Um, but it's about broadening, that network that you have and figuring out, what you want to do. And then to bring us back to our broader topic of new year, new you, what is it that you want in life? Maybe you've done this in the past. Maybe it's just time to refresh it, because the first time I ever sat down with Andy, my son, to use the life course tools and everything, he was a junior in high school. And then we did it again after he graduated from high school. And you know what? What he wanted in life changed. And that's true for all of us. As we grow, as we gain new experiences, as we get older, what we want in life changes. And that's okay. And this is a great time to stop and reflect and reassess and figure out what it is we want in life. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I hope that this was helpful. I hope it was enjoyable. I really loved seeing your guys' answers and hearing your thoughts on all of this. I loved all of it. So thank you so much for that. Um, Next month, we will come back with Ask the ARC, and we're going to focus on preparing for your case conference committee. Because believe it or not, case conference season is just around the corner. So we're going to do an Ask the ARC session on how to prepare for that case conference committee, knowing, what your rights are, knowing how to have those, how to have the discussions with the school system so that everybody's on the same page and working toward the same ultimate goals. So that will be in February for our Ask the ARC series. You are already signed up for it by being here tonight. And thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.